What's up, it's Marco, Sage of Soccer, and today I'll be doing my preview of World Cup Group E. And man, this is a group with a ton of talent. We've got Germany and Spain who are full of world-class players in their prime, and in addition, they've got some holdovers from their World Championship teams in the past. Guys like Sergio Busquets, Manuel Neuer, and Thomas Muller, who know how to win a World Cup and bring that experience. And then we've got Japan and Costa Rica, and we covered that Japan team in September. We saw how good they were firsthand. And Costa Rica, we've seen them get out of groups of death before. But that being said, I think it'd be a bit disingenuous, similar to the last group we talked about. There are two clear favorites here in Spain and Germany. Now, there are paths for teams to upset, and we've seen Germany crash out in the group stage at the last World Cup, and I'm not completely sold on Spain, but Spain and Germany are the two clear favorites to make it through. I'm going to start out talking about Germany, the team that won the World Cup in 2014. Since then, they failed to really return to those heights. We've seen them with the curse of the champion crash out in 2018 in the group stage, and they failed to make a splash at the last Euros. But this team is world-class. So many amazing players in the squad makes them a real threat to win it. Just a top-class midfield, dangerous wide men, a strong center backs, and a goalkeeper that's the best of his generation. I think there are a couple of holes at fullback. It's a little bit questionable. There's no great striker in this team as well. And with a little bit of a hole of the defense and no truly reliable goal scorer, that is a recipe to get upset. But I think Germany are still able to get the better of their opposition, and they're probably a threat to win the tournament. It looks like Germany will be setting up in a 4-2-3-1. We've seen Flick use this very well at Bayern Munich. They have experimented with a 3 at the back, and it might be able to get the most out of their talent, especially at fullback, but I think they're going to be doing the 4-2-3-1, and they're going to be playing in a highly attacking style. There is something interesting about the tactics in that they really play their wingers as true wingers. They don't invert them at all. And especially with the lack of a real goal threat, I'm not positive about that decision. But, I mean, Flick's earned the right to be trusted. For individual players, you have to expect Manuel Neuer will be in goal. I should say that we've seen the recent stuff about him having cancer, and he is dealing with an injury right now. So I wouldn't say it's like set in stone. He might not be able to recover due to his injury. But I think he will be there, and you kind of have to feel for Marc-Andre ter Stegen. He's an amazing keeper, and on so many other national teams, he'd be the number one. He's like a borderline world-class keeper, but you can't take Neuer out. Neuer, like, elite sweeper keeper, amazing passing, like, defined a generation of goalkeepers. Like, he completely changed the game. And on top of that, he still has amazing reactions. I wouldn't say he's the best shot stopper in the world anymore, but like there was a time where he was, in addition to being like such an elite sweeper keeper. Probably goes down as one of, if not the best goalkeepers of all time, and Germany will be confident with him. At center back, it's a little bit tougher to pick, but I think Rudiger and Niklas Süle are pretty set in stone. Rudiger has been, we saw how good he was at Chelsea, completely helped that defense. And now he goes to Real Madrid, and, well, it's hard to get into the team immediately. They won the Champions League and didn't sell either of their center backs. But I think that he's still an amazing player, like, great on the ball, extremely technical. We'll see him, like, make a huge runs forward, probably try a long shot. Addition, like, great athlete defensively, reads the game extremely well, like, everything you want out of a center back. Niklas Süle is pretty strong as well. I don't think he has the mobility that you'd really like to have in a center back, especially at this level with fullbacks who you're not completely sold on. I definitely think this isn't as good of a pairing as like Boateng and Hummels were when Germany won the World Cup. But he's still very strong. He can also play right back, but I don't think that'll really be considered, which is something I'm going to be saying a couple of times this video. But Niklas Süle is an option, and I think he will start. I don't think he'll be a liability, but not as strong. You could also see like some of his Dortmund teammates, like Nico, or you still have Mats Hummels as an option, but I'm not even sure if Hummels makes the team. But I would expect to see Rudiger and Süle. Fullback, I did say that it was a weakness for Germany, and I do still believe that, but something to be said is it might be better than it was in 2014. Remember, Philipp Lahm wasn't a right back. He wasn't supposed to be. He was playing a defensive midfielder, and he got shifted out there because they needed to make a change. They had Boateng playing out of position and Howard playing out of position. They had Mertesacker starting as a center back for a while. So I will say, I look at this group they have right now, and it's not that bad at all. And maybe worst case scenario, you see something similar with Lahm, with Kimmich, his successor, or maybe he gets shifted out to play right back. I think that's a worst case scenario. I could see it happening, especially given the depth in midfield. But obviously, Kimmich is probably Germany's best player. You want to keep him in the midfield, and I think they will. But I want to bring it up there as an option. At left back, it'll likely be David Room, who, well, he hasn't been great at Leipzig. He has played pretty well for the national team, and his only real competition is Robin Gosens, who's more comfortable at like a wing back. I think if it was a wing back, you'd probably go with him, but you'd probably go with Rom. He's got a great cross on him, though there really isn't a target man in this Germany team. A pretty good athlete, but I think he could struggle with more dynamic attackers, but he should be fine for the group stage. Right back, it's probably a weaker position, and I am assuming that Kimmich won't be played there. You've got Theo Keller and Jonas Hoffman as the real options. It looks like Klosterman's going to miss this World Cup due to injury. Keller has not been great for West Ham. He's been playing as a center back. I think he does a bit better out on the right, but he's not somebody who fills me with confidence. And Hoffman's more of a winger who's been pretty good for Borussia Mönchengladbach this year, but his defense leaves something to be desired. Again, I think you have to bring up Joshua Kimmich at right back would be a decent option, and Flick did do that before with Bayern, but I don't think they'd end up doing that. I think they go with Hoffman at right back to help out the offense, but it could easily be Keller, and I should say that neither are really bad options, especially in a group stage. But once you get to the knockout round, you're going to be going up against world class players every single game. I think they could be kind of found out, but Keller, Hoffman, Room, not bad players at all. The midfield is tough to predict due to how many great options Germany have. Joshua Kimmich will be a starter. I'm hoping in the midfield, and he should be played there. Just such an elite level talent for Bayern Munich. Does everything you need him to do, and man, probably the best player on this Germany team, and I'd say he's a world-class player, such an elite talent. And then beside him in the midfield, I think there are two options in Ilkay Gundogan and Leon Goretzka. Maybe you could play somebody else a little bit deeper, and I should mention that Toni Kroos retired from international play, so we can't see him. I think with Gundogan, I think you get a real goal threat, and he does have a bit of bite in him defensively. And I think I'd be going with Gundogan, but man, it's not wrong to pick Goretzka, and both of them are so good that I think considering Kimmich at right back is an option, because you're not getting that much of a drop off, but you want to have Kimmich at his best. And man, if you give that phone call to Toni Kroos and he picks up, you have to consider that, I think. But I think you're going to go with Kimmich and Gundogan in the midfield. Wing is another very strong position for Germany. You'd expect to see the Bayern duo of Leroy Sané and Serge Gnabry. I think Sané will be healthy by the time the World Cup starts, and he has been on a tear to start the season for Bayern Munich. He's been looking like that world-class player we saw before the injury, his world-class potential we saw before he got injured, and I think he might finally be starting to fulfill that. And Gnabry has been very consistent for Bayern Munich, putting in goals. I will say that, as I mentioned before, they are not inverted, and I think that limits their goal-scoring potential a little bit, and they have good attacking fullbacks on this Germany team, so I'm not sure about that decision. But Sané, he's still a dynamic winger who's in amazing goal-scoring form, and Gnabry, he's not as quick, but has consistently found goals, and man, ever since Tony Pulis threw him away, he has been such a good player. If you play Hoffman in his more natural position at a wing, he could do that as well. But I think you have to go with Sané and Gnabry. The Bayern duo have been just so talented. You have to get them on the field. Then we have attacking midfield, which is, in my opinion, the toughest choice in the team. You have wonder kid Jamal Musiala, who has been amazing to start the season. You've always seen his talent, an amazing dribbler, but he's added goals to his game this season for Bayern Munich. And then there's Thomas Muller, who's he has the best World Cup resume out of anybody in the world right now. Any active player, we've seen the goals he scored in 2010, 2014, and a bit of a drop-off in 2018, but man, we know that he can turn up at this tournament. I will say that Muller is currently dealing with an injury, and he was already off to a slow start at Bayern Munich, and he was dropped from this Germany team before, so I wouldn't expect them to be too loyal, German efficiency. They won't just keep him in the team because they really like him. Cough, cough, Aaron Long. And I think with how good Musiala has been, you have to start him as the 10. He's been in such good form that he is undroppable, and will become a world-class player sooner rather than later if he's not already one. I think Mueller is so good that I'd honestly consider playing him up top just to get everybody on the field. And striker's not a great option. You don't have a true number 9 in my opinion, or at least not a great one. And I would try to get both of them on the field. You could even play like Musiala a little bit deeper. If Sane isn't ready yet, you could play Musiala out on the left. Muller's played on the right before. You play Gnabry on the left, have him come inside. Like, there are a lot of options to do. And I would try to get both of them on the field. But I think my guess for what Flick will do is he will start Musiala to start the tournament as Muller's returning from injury. And if Musiala's performing amazingly, he'll stick with him. If not, then I think he brings in Thomas Muller. And man, I did all this without even talking about Marco Reus, who, if he's available, is another amazing option, but just such a talented German team. Lastly, we have striker, a weak point for this Germany team right now, and honestly a weak point since Klose retired. Timo Werner is an energetic option who's recently been able to find goals for Germany. Kai Havertz, he brings everything that you want out of like a great striker, except 12 goals, but he has scored for Germany recently, getting 2 goals against England. Lucas Nemeka is probably the best traditional striker that Germany has, but I don't think the Wolfsburg man is really like at the level you'd want. I'd also throw in Mueller, but I wouldn't expect him to be played up top. I think that Flick goes with Werner, because I think he's a pretty reliable goal threat, gets some athleticism on the field. He could really help with the pressing, but it could easily be Havertz. And you do have to remember Makuaku, who's also there, but he might not even make the squad, and if he does, he definitely won't start. Overall, Germany has a very strong team, but they may struggle to score goals, and they have a defense that I think is a little bit suspect. And I should say that I think they really lack the star power that they had in 2014. You have Joshua Kimmich, who I feel like is a great player, and Neuer and Muller are still there, but they're not at the level they were in 2014, and there's no like Mesut Ozil, Toni Kroos, or Philipp Lahm in the squad. I think they're still a contender for the title, and they are a very strong team. I think they will be able to top the group over Spain, but in the knockout round, things will get very tough. They should have Croatia in the round of 16, maybe Belgium, and that'll be a very tough game, and after that, they're likely to face Brazil, and I think Brazil will be able to get their revenge in the quarterfinals after that 7-1 game. I think Germany has the potential to go a little bit further, and if luck goes their way, they could easily find themselves in the final and easily find themselves winning the tournament. We know that Germany are always a threat, but I think this isn't as good of a Germany team we've seen before in 2014. And I think they have a little bit too many holes to really be a World Cup contender, but they are still going to be a very intense team, like going to be a team to watch. Next, we have Spain, who are coming at the end of their golden generation, though the younger players have been stepping up very well. They're coming off a Euro run where they were penalties away from making the final, and I think this team has a lot of potential. They've got a very strong defense and midfield, and I think their attack probably doesn't have the class of the other few positions, but they're on pretty good form, even like Morata at striker. Though something about the Spain team is I don't think they really have the identity that Spain has in the past. They will still keep possession, but it's not like the team in 2008 through 2012 where, man, you know, like all the chemistry they had despite being Barcelona and Real Madrid players, where they'd definitely keep the ball. They had good strikers up front. Like, you knew how they were going to play. And this Spanish squad, I think part of the problem is that every position is kind of like a major battle. And I don't think they really have a true identity. They don't know how they're really going to play. And that's part of the reason I don't see Spain getting that far in this tournament. And I could even see them getting tripped up in the group stage, though I think they are likely to get through. Spain will be playing a 4-3-3, and they will be dominant on the ball. They'll have the majority of possession in all, or at least most of their games. This can make them tough to break down as teams will have very little of the ball, but it could leave them a bit open on counterattacks. They've been able to turn this play into goals despite them not having a great striker, though they have been conceding a lot recently as well. Individually, in goal we have Unai Simon. I don't think he's the world-class keeper that a De Gea or Iker Casillas was, but he is actually consistent, unlike both of them. Maybe Casillas and De Gea had a couple of years in their prime where they were just amazing, but the rest of their career, not really. And Simon, I wouldn't put him in like a Neuer or a Courtois tier. He's just a very solid keeper, and he will be consistent. He won't be making huge mistakes. who would just be a very solid option for Spain, and that might be all they need. Center back is tough to predict, to say the least. You have a ton of options like a Pau Torres, Guillamon, Garcia, Martinez, Laporte, even Sergio Ramos could be selected. I'm going to go with Torres and Laporte. That is two lefties, though. But I think they are the best pairing that Spain has right now. Laporte has been getting in a lot of games recently for Man City. And Laporte, very solid defensively. We've seen him do extremely well in teams that keep possession. And Torres has a little bit of speed, which is something that Laporte lacks. Both are very good on the ball, and I think it's their best partnership that's realistic. I think Garcia and Guillamon aren't ready. Sergio Ramos hasn't played enough, and I think that's a very solid partnership. I think you would even compare that to Rudiger and Sula. I think both of them are better than Sula. Probably neither of them better than Rudiger, but still a very good group. Fullback is equally tough to predict. On the left, you have options in Jordi Alba, Gaia, Marcos Alonso. Maybe you would even have Cucurella be an outside chance. I think Alba will be tough to unseat, but he has started the season with Barcelona pretty poorly, and arguably Marcos Alonso has been the better player there. Gaia is very solid and really should have left Valencia. I think he's a much better all-around player. Still has the athleticism, good defensively, solid going forward. Alba's probably a bit better going forward, though. I'd say Guy's probably the best option, but I think Jordi Alba will certainly be the starter. Right back is also tough with Dani Carvajal and Cesar Azpilicueta. I think the Real Madrid man gets the nod. He's a bit more athletic and offers a bit more going forward, though I'd say Azpilicueta is more solid defensively. I don't think there's really a wrong decision, but it's tough to go against the Real Madrid man after winning so many Champions League titles. I think you have to go with him. Then on to the midfield, and it's just stacked. There are so many options that Spain have. I think they go with Busquets, Pedri, and Koke, though there are a ton of choices. Like at the 6, I think that Roger would be the better option for that defensive midfield role. I think he can keep possession just as well as Busquets can, and offers a lot more defensively. And honestly, I feel like, especially on an all-time scale, Busquets is a little bit overrated, and I think he really doesn't offer much defensively right now. But we know how good he is in possession, and he has been part of World Cup championship teams before, so you have to keep that in mind. Then you have Pedri, who will still be a teenager by the time the World Cup starts, which scares me. There's a Gerard Way quote about that. And he's only going to get better. Like, great offensive option, creativity, can break lines with his passing. Like, everything you need out of an extremely talented young midfielder. Like, sky's the limit for him. He's already showed his skill for Spain, and he'll be an amazing option. And then Koke helps out a bit more defensively, and also does great to keep the ball in possession. Like, there's an amazing midfield that like has even more off the bench. Like Barca wonder Xavi could come in. You see a Thiago, Parejo, Marcos Llorente, and there's more. Like, this is just a very strong midfield we expected from Spain, and they did not disappoint. Attack is a weaker point for the Spanish team, especially compared to the world-class midfield and very strong defense. But it does appear to be somewhat set, unlike those other positions. On the wing, we can expect to see Ferran Torres and Pablo Sarabia. Sarabia has been very good for Spain, and Torres has recently hit some good form at Barcelona, and it might be him coming into his potential. I don't think either are great athletes, but they can help in possession and find goals. I think it's a pretty good pairing that could easily show their stuff. Though, good options off the bench. You've got like a Dani Albo, Oyarzabal, and Marcos Asensio are contenders. I really hope Asensio gets back on track. Injuries really killed him. I thought he'd be a world-class player, but pretty good options on the wing, though. Again, not elite. And then up top, you have Morata, who has found some good form recently, and has been a good focal point that I think this team needs. Tall, pretty good athlete, can do well in possession, but we've seen him at the highest level. He's got a little bit of a ceiling, especially if they get into the knockout round. You can only expect him to do too much, but maybe this can be his breakthrough. And, I'm not sure, but hey, he's on good form. Maybe he can be it this year. Overall, Spain is a pretty good squad, but I think they're off the upper echelon of the great teams at this tournament, and I don't think they have the quality in them to top the group. They have a good defense, a very strong midfield, and an attack that's at least in form. But I think for this team, as I mentioned before, with their lack of identity, you really don't have a real definitive style with this team. I think that they are very susceptible to the counter. Busquets is not going to be breaking up counterattacks. Jordi Alba has shown a lot of weaknesses defensively this year. And it's not a amazing defense. Laporte is extremely solid. I think Torres is a very good player, but it's not the world-class level defense that we've seen Spain have before, and like a Sergio Ramos, peak PK, Puyol. Like, I think there are some weaknesses in the squad, and I could see them even getting tripped up by Japan. They are a very technical team that might be able to match them in the midfield, and they have an attack that could cause them trouble, and especially looking at guys like Mitma. Maybe he comes off the bench and can get Spain late in the game if it's still an even game, and if Japan get an early goal, this attack isn't that dangerous. They might not be able to force a goal to come in. Though, I will say again, Spain are clear favorites in that matchup. It would be an upset if Japan were able to do that, but I'm still not sold on the Spanish squad. I don't think they have the offense needed to keep up with Belgium or maybe even not Croatia in the round of 16. If they get Croatia, we've seen them get the better of them before, but I think it'll be tough for them to reach the quarterfinals, and that might be their ceiling for this tournament. Though, I should say, they have taken games to penalties a lot, though I'm not too sure if that's that big of a positive because they've lost a lot of those games. So I think Spain have a very good team, but it's far from their golden generation. Next, we got Japan, and I already did a preview of them before they faced the US in September, but there are a couple more injury updates, and we could use a refresher. Japan have a very good attacking squad that has always had a great technical ability, but this year there's a dynamic attack that they really didn't have before and adds a new dimension to their team. I think their defense has improved slightly, but injuries have really hurt them, and they lack the amazing talent that Spain and Germany have, and I don't think they really have the personnel needed to give them like a good defensive game to struggle. I think they're going to have to go toe-to-toe to them and outplay them, which they're going to be the underdogs in those games, to say the least. They have had some very good moments, and they've gotten out of groups before, but it's going to be a struggle for Japan. Tactically, Japan like to have the most of the ball. They like to be able to kill teams with possession, which I think might actually hurt them this tournament because they're going to be going up against teams that are just better than them. Though I will say that they do have a lot of attacking talent, a lot of speed in the squad that I think could take like a Spain or Germany by surprise on the counterattack, which I think could really help them. And I think formationally wise, they should be playing either a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1. It really won't change the personnel. It's just, will Endo be playing a little bit deeper, or will Kamada be playing a bit further forward? On to the individual players, and in goal, there's no real great option for Japan. I think they go with Daniel Schmidt. He comes in from the Belgian league, and he's pretty good with his feet, but he's a Belgian league keeper. He's only so good, and he's in a group with some amazing goalkeepers, and he's pretty by far the worst one in the group. Though don't think I think negatively of him. He was born in America, and I would really like it if he was representing the U.S. right now. And by the way, just throwing out there, bring Zion Suzuki to the January U.S. camp. Just throwing that out there. Again, don't think he's a great option. He's not going to make Japan win any games that they wouldn't anyway, but good in possession, and I don't think he'll make any huge blunders this tournament. The defense is tough to talk about, because if everything goes right, it could be very good. They are boosted by the return of Ko Itakura, who isn't like an elite player, but he is a solid all-around defender, and you still have Yoshida, who's still going, doing a job in Schalke next to him, and that'll be, like, again, it's not an elite defense, but that's a solid pairing. And then you've got Tomiyasu at Arsenal, who is on his way to becoming just a great right back, might already be there, solid defensively, good going forward. And then left back, you have Nagamoto, who, he's 36 now, but we saw him do a job in a top 5 league. We saw how good he was for Inter for a long time. But that's if everything goes right. If Itakura is not ready to go, Japan don't really have great backups at center back. The depth there isn't strong. Maybe you could move Tomiyasu to center back. They've done that before. But if you do that, there's not much right back depth behind Tomiyasu. So you really don't want to do that. And especially because they didn't bring in Sugagawa, who's probably their best backup right back. They didn't bring him into the team, and he's not injured. Even at left back, like, you don't want to put him there either. And Nagamoto, he's really the only option. He's 36. He's the only option because Nakayama there, who's a championship center back, who they're kind of deputizing at left back, he's injured now. He's out for the tournament. So you just look at the squad man, it's kind of shaky. Like, if everything goes right, you could see it going well and see them stopping attacks. But man, you got a very old defense, a lot of injuries in there, so I'm really not sold on them. And that's part of the reason why I don't have them beating Spain and Germany. But again, if everything goes right, who knows what could happen? The midfield is pretty strong, but they're going to be going up against Spain and Germany. And while I really like Endo as a defensive midfielder, he's not Busquets, he's not Kimmich, he's not Rodri. So he's going to be asked with a very tough job. But again, he's really solid. He might be able to do a job. And you got Sporting's Marita, who is a good box-to-box presence, adds some real toughness to the team, make them a bit tougher to break down, and he does have some good technical ability as well. And then at the 10, Daichi Kamada, like Japan's best player, the Frankfurt star, helped them win the Europa League. He's a playmaker. He pops up with goals. Definitely a player that both Germany and Spain are going to have to watch out for. It's going to be very tough to get the majority of the ball against amazing midfields in Germany and Spain. But this is a very solid group that you kind of feel for them, because in a lot of other groups, like if they were going up against like an England, if they're going up against like a Switzerland, a Serbia, they might be able to have more of the ball, but they got very unlucky with their draw. Japan did this year. Out wide, there are a ton of options. You have Ito, Minamino, Kuba, Mitoma, Duan. Maybe you could play Asano out wide, though it looks like he might be a backup striker. I think Ito is one of the players who needs to be in the squad, adds a lot of dynamism to this Japan team, and a real goal threat. So I see him starting probably on the right. And the other spots, like, really tough to predict. You've got Mitoma, Minamino, Kuba. They all offer ability to cut in and make an impact. I think Mitoma has looked very dangerous lately, and Kubo is dealing with a bit of a knock, so I think Mitoma gets the nod. But man, you still have Kubo, Minamino, like Duan, like such a really good wingers, and coming off the bench, I think they'll be a big threat late in the game, so they can keep these games close. Up front, I'm expecting Celtics Maeda to lead the line. Another dynamic player who's flashed some goal scoring ability, though if I'm being completely honest, I would have gone with the other Japanese Celtic striker, but he can still do a job. Then you have Asano, who's another just amazing athlete, a former Arsenal player, technically, who can help lead the line as well. Like, a couple of good options there, but no real elite goal scorer, which might end up hurting Japan, because they're going to need goals to get past. They're going to need to make their few chances count against Germany and Spain. Overall, this is a Japan side with a lot of attacking talent and a defense that could be good on its day, but the problem is they're facing two great teams. And not to mention Costa Rica, and Keylor Navas could just have one of his games, and that could be trouble for them as well. I really don't see them defeating Germany or Spain. You could catch a quick goal and then hold out for a win, but you could say that about any team ever. Like, I struggle to see this Japan team advancing, but I am a big fan of their squad, and they are going to be fun to watch. Lastly, we have Costa Rica, and you can never look past them. We saw what they did in 2014, but I really don't see that happening this year. Costa Rica is one of those teams I'm going to talk about who are kind of in between generations. They still have some holdovers from that amazing 2014 run, and some young blood that helped them qualify, but they lack just so much in the squad, and I really don't see them advancing. I'm really not sure if they score a goal. I can see like a good defensive performance being led by Keylor Navas, who can help them like get a point maybe, but it's going to be very tough. Joel Campbell is still a goal threat. I don't think he really fulfilled the potential that he had back at Arsenal. Brian Ruiz is much older. He's still in the squad, but he's probably going to be coming off the bench, and Costa Rica got better when they benched him along with younger players. I think their best young player might be Jewison Bennett, who is a good prospect, recently moved to Sunderland. You can expect to see a lot more moving abroad pretty soon. I think, like I mentioned before, this Costa Rica squad is in between generations. The younger one's going to come up and get better. I think CONCACAF qualifying is going to be pretty easy in 2026, because U.S., Canada, Mexico, they're all going to already be at the tournament. So overall, like, you can see potential for this Costa Rica squad. Maybe they have a good defensive performance led by, like, Keylor Navas, who's still a legend of the game, but, like, it's not really worth going through the full squad because I don't think they're going to be able to make an impact at this tournament. Overall, for this group, I see Germany winning and Spain also advancing. Japan has a chance to trip up one of the European giants, but I think it will be tough. And Costa Rica did a great job in qualifying, and we've seen what they did in 2014. But I don't think you'd be honest and say anything except Germany and Spain advancing is a realistic possibility. That's all I got to talk about with this group. It's going to be very fun to watch. Spain and Germany, once they get to the knockout round, I think that Spain's going to be tough for them to advance far. And Germany, they've got a very tough group. I really am excited to see Germany go up against Brazil in the quarterfinals. I'm hoping that matchup can happen. And yeah, that's all I've talked about. It's going to be a fun group to watch. Yeah, see ya.